Hi, this is Justin Cook, Director of Production at Funimation Entertainment, voice of Super Boo in Dragon Ball Z as well as the voice of Raditz. You're listening to a recording that was made 2013, don't know when you're listening to it, which means I've been on this incredible journey for approximately 14 years now. In the world of Dragon Ball Z, I started off as a ADR engineer, somewhere in the middle of the Trunks saga, and continued on and worked my way up as a voice for Super Boo in the last saga of Dragon Ball Z, and then also as we went back and recorded the uncut episodes, I was the voice of Raditz. These are the confessions of a super fan of Dragon Ball Z. I've got a lot of headshots that I got back in the day. And when I say that, I started at Funimation on February 14th of the year 2000. I really knew very little about the anime industry at that time, but what I did see was a group of people who were absolutely in love with this work that we were all getting to participate in. And what quickly rubbed off on me was, I guess, a little bit of a starstruck attitude towards a lot of the voice actors we were using. Though we may have been stars in our own minds, we certainly weren't on the grand stage, and I think we all really knew that, but what we were doing was unique and new. Anyway, I had asked a lot of the voice actors at the time to sign headshots for me. I really had them, they were signing trading cards for me, they were signing action figures for me, and one day I'll have to show you the underwear. But what we've got here is a collection of all the headshots that I've acquired over the years, specific to Dragon Ball Z. And the first one you see up on your screen there is for Sean Schemmel, the voice of Goku. And let me just be the one to reiterate this. I'm sure Sean has said it in an interview once or twice before, but yeah, the character of Goku means probably more to Sean than any actor in all of Dragon Ball Z cares for their character. What I'm trying to say is that Sean has done so much philosophical research behind his character, and is probably also the most like his character. You can notice, and I'm regretful that Sean never did sign a headshot for me, and I actually don't even know that I received this particular headshot from Sean's or acquired it afterward digging through files, but we'll have to get him to sign that for me, so you guys all make sure when you see him at cons to tell him to sign Justin's headshot. The first one that we do have some signatures for is a Mike McFarland, the voice of Master Roshi. He was one of the voice directors that worked with us and still does. Mike also was a part of Section 8, which was an improv troupe that did a lot of comedy, which was a lot of fun on Thursday nights when a great number of the cast would get together and head down and check out his show. He is an absolutely hilarious guy and wonderful person to work with. Next picture I've got up is Linda Young, of course the original voice of the character Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. And Linda jokingly would always refer to Chris Sabat, myself, and John Bergmeyer, who is her real son, but she would refer to all three of us as her sons. The inscription here on this headshot's actually in reference to Yu Yu Hakusho, another show that we did together. But Linda was a fantastic voice actress and a fantastic talent in person just to have around and in the studio. Next is Stephanie Nadolny, was the original voice of the character Gohan. Stephanie had been with Funimation long before I had gotten there and did the role a lot of justice and served a lot of episodes, both as the voice for Goku in Dragon Ball and GT, and of course of Gohan in Dragon Ball Z. Sonny Strait, who references in his signature to Lord Super Saiyan Jesus. Sean Schemmel had dubbed our mix engineer at the time, a gentleman by the name of Evan Jones with his long black hair, as Jesus jokingly, probably because of the goatee and the hair. And once I started with my long blonde hair and with our work on Dragon Ball Z is where the Super Saiyan Jesus came in, and Sean loves to tell that story, so you can ask him about that next time you see him at a convention. But Sonny jumped in on that, and that's the reference of where his autograph comes from. Cynthia Kratz, a voice of Chi-Chi from Dragon Ball Z. I tell you, if there is ever a character animated on screen that has dark hair and is a mother, Cynthia usually was the go-to voice for it. She has such an incredibly nurturing type of a voice that seems to really be the kind of go-to with her, although I have had a lot of fun working with Cynthia as well on a variety of different characters, Botan or villainesses in different shows and things to that nature. Eric Vale. Eric's an interesting part of my history regarding Dragon Ball Z due to the fact that the first recording session I participated in was recording his first Trunks session. That did end up becoming certainly my favorite character. not just because of Eric's performance, but also just because of the character himself. Eric's an extreme talent, and as you see on the headshot, Eric Johnson is the real name there, but Eric Vale is the name we all know and love him by. Christopher R. Sabat. Worked alongside him. Everything I know about anime, I owe to Chris Sabat, and not just anime, but voice recording in general. Couldn't have asked for a better mentor, as it were, in this particular industry. The Chinaman, Mark Britton, the voice of Corin the Cat originally. This is actually one of his advertisements for one of his stand-up comedy shows. Brilliant comic. If you ever have an opportunity to find one of his albums on eBay or online or anything at all, he's absolutely hilarious. Kent Williams, the most theatrical amongst us for sure. Kent, the man of many words there, as you can see from his headshot. No, Kent came to us as the role of Dr. Giraud, and just such an incredible voice. He ended up doing scores and scores of characters and narrators for us across the years. But in the beginning, he was the leader of the androids, or supposed leader of the androids, which was also, I suppose, a little bit ironic because at the time he was a theater instructor at one of the high schools in the local area, and one of the students that he brought to the table for Funimation was Meredith McCoy, who was the voice of our Android 18. You know, Meredith brought a lot of youth and energy to the character Android 18, and really brought the character alive, not just during her villainous days upon her arrival into the series, but also later on in the show when she was the romantic interest to Krillin and on into Dragon Ball GT. James Fields, the voice of, I believe in our ADR scripts, he was listed as Johnny Firecracker, the fast-talking reporter who reported on the Cell Games saga. Wonderful voice actor to work with from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and would make the drive down to work with us any day of the week, and fantastic guy to work with. Damian Clark, another fantastic guy to work with. I tell you what, as I flip through these things, I'm reminded just how much fun we were all having as we were working on incredible schedules and tight deadlines. Damian's headshot here, you'll notice he indicates got your fourth beep right here, and that's a reference to a practical joke that we would play on a lot of the voice actors. The usual method of madness here is that a voice actor will get 3 beeps, and the fourth imaginary tone would be where they would come in with their first line. And with Damien, we would oftentimes have 14 or 15 or 16 beeps that would tag in. So he'd be prepared to come in on number 4, the imaginary number 4, but then there'd actually be one there, and that would always throw him for a loop. But that was one of the things we'd keep doing to try to make sure the ice was broken and everything was staying jovial and loose in the sessions, and we'd get a lot more done that way. Laura Bailey, the voice of young Trunks, as now we're getting up into the back half of the Dragon Ball Z storyline. Of course, Lara's gone on to do great work in other anime, but also in the world of video games and now live-action films and television. And Rick Robertson, the voice of Dabura in Dragon Ball Z. A little hard to read what he has written to me here. I believe it would be thanks for the directions, and he was certainly one to take them. Colleen Klinkenbeard, the voice of the Snake Princess from the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Once we had reached the conclusion of Dragon Ball Z, we actually, instead of saying it was all over, we got to go back in time, back to the beginning of the series, and record the first 50-some-odd episodes uncut, which they had never been recorded before, as we were meshing together our English or Texas cast versus the original Canadian cast that had been recorded on that. We did do a complete set of recasting and re-recording and bringing in the original, or our original voices, to re-record those first batch of episodes. Colleen was brought onto the staff again as the Snake Princess. One of the things Colleen makes mention of in her signature is in regards to a lot of our reactions that we would do, which are oftentimes the most difficult part for a voice actor to get used to. A lot of, all those kinds of noises tend to be one of the more challenging things to try to do when you're first getting started. Finally, Vic Mignogna, taking us out of the series of Dragon Ball Z and actually moving into the movies. This was the voice of Broly, which it's always a hoot to get Vic into a booth and then inform him he's playing a character that will be screaming for the entire session. And I can tell you it's something enjoyable for most all voice directors as well as for Vic. And that kind of wraps up the first little insight into my little collection of memorabilia from back in the day with Dragon Ball Z. I look forward to showing you many, many more candid photographs and autographs and anything else that we could possibly get up on screen for you guys to take a look at and to get to see. So until next time, here's waiting for the underwear. Thanks.